Yuna heard him before she saw him. The crunch of boots in snow. The creak of the cabin door. The soft sound of breathing, tired but steady. She turned from the window and saw Taiho standing in the doorway. He was covered in snow and blood. His clothes were torn. A deep cut ran across his forehead, dripping red down his face. He looked like he had walked through a war, but he was alive. "It is done," he said simply. Yuna stared at him. She had watched armies clash across the stars. She had seen the greatest warriors of her people fight with weapons that could crack planets. She had witnessed battles that would become legends, but she had never seen anything like this. "6 Shadow Guard," she whispered. "You killed 6 Shadow Guard, alone, with primitive weapons. How is this possible?" Taiho walked to the fire and sat down heavily. He began cleaning his wounds with water from a pot near the flames. His movements were calm and practiced, like he had done this many times before. "Not killed," he said. 5 dead. When I let go, you let one live? Why? To deliver a message." Yuna shook her head. "My brother will not stop. He will send more. He will send armies if he must. You cannot defeat an army." "No," Taiho agreed. "But I do not need to defeat an army. I only need to protect one person." He looked at her. "If you stay here, they will keep coming. If you leave, they will follow. There is no safety for you, princess. Not until your war is won." Yuna knew he was right. She had known it since the moment her ship was shot down. There was no running from this. There was no hiding. Her brother would never stop hunting her. The only way to end this was to face him, to reclaim her throne, to fight for everything that was taken from her. But how could she do that? She was stranded on a primitive planet with no ship, no army, no allies. Her people did not even know she was alive. By now, Dohan had probably declared her dead and claimed the succession for himself. "Tell me," Taiho said suddenly, "what kind of ruler would you be?" The question surprised her. No one had ever asked her that before. She was the princess. She was heir to the throne. Her rule was a matter of birth, not choice. I would be fair," she said slowly. "I would protect my people. I would rule with wisdom and strength, as my father did before me. Would you conquer? Would you destroy worlds that stood against you? No. The empire is large enough. We do not need more territory. We need peace. We need time to rebuild after centuries of war." Taiho nodded. He seemed satisfied with her answer. "And humans?" he asked. "What would you do with humans? Your empire is powerful. You could take this planet easily. You could enslave us, use us, destroy us without effort." Yuna looked at this strange man. This quiet hunter who had defeated the deadliest warriors in the galaxy with nothing but skill and will. This human who had saved her life without asking for anything in return. "I would leave you alone," she said. "Your people are young. You need time to grow, to learn, to find your own way to the stars. I would protect this world from those who would harm it. I would make sure you had the chance to become what you were meant to be." Taiho smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it changed his whole face. For a moment, he did not look like a killer. He looked like a man who had found something worth caring about. "Then perhaps," he said, "you are worth protecting." Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away angrily. Princesses did not cry. Rulers did not show weakness. "Why did you help me?" she asked. "You owe me nothing. You have no reason to risk your life for an alien you have never met." "Why?" Taiho was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled and popped. Outside, the wind was dying down, the storm finally passing. "I had a family once," he said. "A wife, a daughter. They were everything to me. Then they were taken. An accident, they called it. A random tragedy. But I knew the truth. Someone was responsible. Someone could have stopped it. He stared into the flames, his eyes far away. I hunted them. The ones responsible. I found them, one by one, and I made them answer for what they had done. It took years. When it was over, I had nothing left. No family, no purpose, no reason to exist. So I came here, to the mountains, to wait for death. He looked at her. Then you fell from the sky, hurt, hunted, alone, just like I was all those years ago. And I thought, maybe this is why I'm still alive. Maybe I was waiting for this moment, for someone who needed what I could give. Yuna understood. She understood in a way that went beyond words. You are not waiting anymore? She said, double quotes. No, I am not. They sat in silence. Two wounded souls from different worlds, finding something they had both lost. Understanding, connection, hope. Come with me, Yuna said finally. When I return to my people, when I reclaim my throne, I will need protectors. I will need warriors I can trust. You could be my guardian, my shield in a galaxy full of enemies. Taiho shook his head. I am no royal guard. I am just an old hunter who wants to be left alone. You are more than that. You are proof that humanity is not primitive. You are proof that there are warriors on this planet who can stand against anyone in the galaxy. My brother underestimated you. Everyone will underestimate you. That is your greatest weapon. Taiho considered her words. He looked around the small cabin at the simple life he had built in this frozen wilderness. It had been his refuge for so long. His hiding place from a world that had hurt him too much, but hiding was not living. He had known that for years. He had just been too afraid to admit it. If I come with you, he said slowly, I will not bow. I will not follow orders I disagree with. I will not become another tool for powerful people to use. I would never ask you to. I want an ally, not a servant. I want someone who will tell me the truth, even when I do not want to hear it. I want someone who will fight beside me, not for me. And if we fail? If your brother wins, and we die in the attempt? Yuna smiled. It was a fierce smile, full of fire and determination. Then we die as warriors. We die fighting for something that matters. Is that not better than waiting alone in the cold? Taiho looked at her for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was a rusty sound, like something that had not been used in a long time. You are a strange princess, he said. And you are a strange human. I think we will work well together. Taiho stood. He walked to the window and looked out at the clearing sky. The storm had passed. The sun was breaking through the clouds, casting golden light across the white snow. My people have a saying, Yuna said, joining him at the window. The stars remember those who fight against the darkness. They write our names in light that will burn forever. And what do they say about the quiet ones? The watchers who fight from the shadows? We call them the silent stars. The ones who shine so softly that no one sees them until it is too late. They are the most dangerous of all. Taiho nodded slowly. He turned to her and extended his hand, the human gesture of agreement. Then I will be your silent star, princess. I will watch your back. I will guard you against the darkness. And when your enemies come, they will learn what this galaxy has forgotten. Yuna took his hand. His grip was strong and warm. What has the galaxy forgotten? Taiho smiled, and that smile was something ancient and powerful. Something that had been sleeping in humanity since the first human picked up a stone and decided to fight back against a hostile universe. That we are not prey, he said. We never were. We are something else entirely. Something that the galaxy is not ready for. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening blue. "But they will learn," he said quietly. "When you sit on your throne and I stand beside you, they will all learn. Humanity is coming, and we do not bow to anyone." Yuna followed his gaze. Somewhere up there, among those distant points of light, her brother waited. Her empire waited. Her destiny waited, and she was no longer afraid. She had found something on this primitive planet that no advanced technology could give her. She had found a true ally, a friend, a protector who asked for nothing but the chance to matter again. The galaxy would tremble when they arrived, because the princess had found her silent watcher, and he looked human. Yuna woke to warmth. For a moment, she thought she was home. She thought she was lying in her chambers in the Imperial Palace, wrapped in soft blankets, listening to the gentle hum of the city outside her window. She thought the crash had been a dream, a terrible nightmare that was now over. Then she opened her eyes and saw the wooden ceiling above her. She was in a small room. The walls were made of dark wood, rough and simple. A fire burned in a stone fireplace nearby, filling the space with orange light and gentle heat. Animal furs covered the floor. Simple furniture sat against the walls. Everything was basic and functional, nothing like the advanced technology she was used to. She was on Earth, in a human dwelling, and she was alive. Yuna tried to sit up. The pain flashed through her body, and she fell back with a gasp. She looked down and saw that someone had removed her damaged suit. She was wearing simple cloth clothing now, soft and warm against her skin. Her wounded leg was wrapped in clean bandages. The violet stain of her blood showed through the white fabric, but the bleeding had stopped. Someone had saved her. Someone had treated her wounds with care and skill. Someone had kept her alive through the night. The door opened. The human walked in, carrying wood for the fire. He was dressed simply, in thick pants and a heavy shirt. His feet made no sound on the wooden floor. He moved with a quiet grace that seemed strange for someone so large. He saw that she was awake. He nodded once, then walked to the fireplace and added the wood to the flames. He did not speak. He did not ask questions. He simply worked, calm and unhurried. Yuna watched him with careful eyes. Among her people, silence was dangerous. Silence meant secrets. Silence meant plans being made in the shadows. When a Valoran was quiet, it usually meant they were thinking about how to hurt you. But this human silence felt different. It was not threatening. It was just peaceful. He seemed comfortable without words, content to exist in the quiet. Finally, Yuna could not take it anymore. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice was weak and rough, but the translation implant carried her meaning clearly. The human looked at her. His dark eyes studied her face for a moment before he answered. "Taiho," he said simply. Yuna waited for more. A family name, a title, an explanation of who he was and why he lived alone in this frozen wilderness. But nothing else came. He just turned back to the fire and adjusted the burning logs. "Taiho," she repeated, testing the name. "I am Princess Yuna of the Valoran Empire. I am heir to the Imperial throne. I command fleets of warships and rule over billions of souls." Taiho glanced at her. His expression did not change. He did not look impressed or afraid or excited. He just looked at her the same way he had looked at her in the snow. Like she was a puzzle he was slowly figuring out. "You need rest," he said. "And food." He stood and walked to a small cooking area in the corner of the room. Yuna watched him prepare something in a pot over a small stove. The smell that filled the room was strange, but not unpleasant. Some kind of grain, she thought, mixed with vegetables and meat. "You are not surprised," Yuna said. "You saw my ship fall from the sky. You saw my blood. You saw my skin. Yet you act like none of this is strange." Taiha stirred the pot without looking at her. Many strange things in this world, he said. One more does not matter, but I am not from this world. I am from the stars. Does that not frighten you? Should it? Yuna did not know how to answer. Every scenario she had learned about first contact with primitive species involved fear. The primitives were supposed to panic. They were supposed to worship the visitors as gods or attack them as demons. They were not supposed to calmly make soup and talk about rest. Most beings would be afraid, she said carefully. Taiho brought her a bowl of the food. He helped her sit up, supporting her back with strong hands, and placed the bowl in her lap. Then he sat down in a chair near the fire and watched her. Fear is for things you cannot understand, he said. You are hurt. You need help. That is easy to understand. Yuna looked at the food. She did not know if it was safe for her to eat. Valaran biology was different from human biology. What was nourishing to him might be poison to her, but she was hungry, so terribly hungry. And something about this quiet human made her trust him. She ate. The food was warm and filling. It sat well in her stomach, and she felt strength slowly returning to her body. She ate every bite, then looked at Taiho with new appreciation. Thank you, she said. The words felt strange in her mouth. Princesses did not thank people. They commanded, and people obeyed. Gratitude was a sign of debt, and royalty could never be in debt to anyone. But Taiho had saved her life. He had carried her through a storm, treated her alien wounds, kept her warm through the night. She owed him everything, and no amount of royal pride could change that. Taiho just nodded. He took the empty bowl and set it aside. Why do you live alone out here? Yuna asked. Where are your people? Your family? A shadow passed over Taiho's face. It was the first real emotion she had seen from him, and it was gone almost as quickly as it appeared. But Yuna was trained to read people, and she saw the pain hidden behind his calm mask. Gone, he said simply. Long time ago. I am sorry. Do not be. It was not your doing. They sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled and popped. Wind howled outside, throwing snow against the windows. But inside this small cabin, everything was warm and still. Yuna found herself relaxing despite her situation. This human, this Taiho, was not a threat to her. She could feel it in her bones. He wanted nothing from her. He expected nothing from her. He had helped her simply because she needed help, with no thought of reward or advantage. She had never met anyone like him. My brother sent assassins to kill me, she said suddenly. She did not know why she was telling him this. He was a stranger, an alien, someone who knew nothing of her world or her problems. But the words came out anyway. He wants the throne. He has always wanted it. And now our father is dying, and I am the only thing standing between him and power. Taiho listened without interrupting. His eyes never left her face. I escaped, Yuna continued. I ran like a coward. I left my people, my world, everything I knew. I thought if I could reach the outer systems, I could gather allies, build an army, take back what is mine. But his assassins found me. They damaged my ship. They forced me here. And now? Taiho asked. Yuna laughed bitterly. Now I am stranded. On a primitive planet with no ship, no weapons, no way to contact anyone. My brother will send more hunters. They will come for me, and when they find me, they will kill me. And there is nothing I can do to stop them. Taiho was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window. He looked out at the storm, his reflection ghostly in the dark glass. How many? He asked. How many what? Hunters. How many will come? Yuna considered the question. I do not know. At least 5, maybe 10. They will be elite soldiers, trained killers. The best my brother has. Taiho nodded slowly. He did not look worried. He did not look scared. He just looked thoughtful, like he was planning something. When? he asked. Soon. Days, maybe. They will track my crash site. They will find me. Taiho turned back to her. In the firelight, his face looked hard and ancient, like something carved from stone. Then you should rest, he said. You will need your strength. For what? There is nothing I can do against them. I am wounded. I am weak. I am alive, Taiho interrupted. You are alive. That is something. He walked past her toward the door. Where are you going? Yuna asked. To prepare. Prepare for what? Taiho stopped at the door. He looked back at her with those calm, dark eyes. For them, he said, thought. Then he was gone, disappearing into the storm like a ghost. Yuna lay back on her bed, her mind spinning. This human was strange beyond understanding. He had no weapons she could see, no technology, no training that could possibly prepare him for what was coming. The hunters who would come for her were the deadliest killers in the Empire. They had slaughtered entire worlds. And yet, there was something about Taiho that made her hesitate. Something in his silence, his stillness, his unshakable calm. He had looked at her description of the coming threat and had not flinched. He had simply asked questions. Practical questions. Tactical questions, like a soldier, like a hunter. For the first time since her ship had been hit, Yuna felt something other than despair. She felt a small, dangerous spark of hope. The Shadow Guard had made a terrible mistake. They had come to Earth expecting easy prey. They had studied the planet from orbit and seen a primitive world with no technology worth noting. They had scanned the crash site and found one wounded Valoran female hiding in a wooden structure. They had laughed at the simplicity of their mission. They were not laughing now. Commander Junho stood in the valley, staring at the bodies of two of his finest warriors. They had been elite soldiers, trained since childhood, enhanced with the best biotechnology the Empire could provide. They had killed hundreds of enemies, across dozens of worlds, and they had been slaughtered by a primitive with Stone Age weapons. How? Whispered Mira, his second in command. She was staring at the wounds on their fallen brothers. Their armor should have stopped any weapon on this planet. Junho examined the bodies. The first had been caught in some kind of trap. A wire across the path had triggered a mechanism that sent sharpened wooden stakes through gaps in the armor. The stakes had pierced the soft spots at the joints, places that only someone with deep knowledge of Valoran anatomy would know to target. The second had died differently. He had been pulled from above, lifted into the trees by a rope around his neck. His rifle had been taken. His neck had been broken. This was not a primitive attack, Junho said slowly. This was an ambush. A planned, careful ambush by someone who knew we were coming. The princess warned someone? Perhaps. Or perhaps this planet is not as primitive as we believed. Junho looked up at the mountain. Somewhere up there, hidden in the snow and trees, an enemy was waiting. An enemy who knew this terrain. An enemy who had already killed two of his best soldiers without suffering a single injury. We stay together, Junho commanded. No one moves alone. We advance as a unit, covering all directions. The target is the wooden structure on the upper slope. We eliminate everyone inside, retrieve the princess's body, and leave this cursed planet. The remaining 4 hunters formed up. Mira on point, Junho in the center, Suwon and Himen covering the flanks. They moved up the mountain slowly, pulse rifles ready, eyes scanning every shadow. The forest was silent. The snow fell steadily, covering their tracks almost as quickly as they made them. The only sounds were their own breathing and the crunch of their boots in the frozen ground. Suwon died first, thought he simply vanished. One moment he was there, covering the left flank. The next moment he was gone, pulled into a snowbank with barely a sound. When Junho reached the spot, he found only blood on the snow and drag marks leading into the darkness between the trees. Hold position, Junho shouted. Eyes up, all directions. They stood back to back, rifles sweeping the tree line. Minutes passed. Nothing moved. The snow continued to fall. Sir, Myra said, her voice tight with fear. We need to retreat. We need to. The attack came from above. A shape dropped from the trees, landing directly on Hemin. They went down in a tangle of limbs and snow. Junho saw a flash of movement, heard a wet crack, and then the shape was gone again, disappearing into the white storm. Hemin did not get up. Ju, Nho, and Mira stood alone. Two of the Empire's deadliest warriors, reduced to frightened prey. Their pulse rifles swept wildly, searching for a target they could not see. Show yourself, Junho screamed. Face us like a warrior. Silence answered him. Then a voice came from everywhere and nowhere, calm and quiet and terrifying. You are in my home. Junho spun toward the sound, but there was nothing there. Just snow and trees and shadows. You came to kill, the voice continued. Now you will learn what that means. Myra broke. She had never been hunted before. She had never known what it felt like to be prey. The fear overwhelmed her training, her discipline, her loyalty. She turned and ran, sprinting down the mountain toward the valley, toward the ship that could take her away from this nightmare. She made it 20 steps. Junho heard her scream. He heard the sound of impact, of something heavy hitting the ground. Then silence. He was alone. Junho stood in the falling snow, his pulse rifle shaking in his hands. He had served the Empire for 50 years. He had conquered worlds. He had killed thousands. He had never known fear like this. What are you? He whispered. A shape emerged from the storm. It was the human. Tall and weathered, dressed in forest colors, moving with a predator's grace. He held no weapon. His hands hung at his sides, empty and calm. But his eyes, his dark, quiet eyes held something that made Junho's blood freeze. Those were not the eyes of a primitive. Those were not the eyes of someone who had stumbled into this fight by accident. Those were the eyes of someone who had seen death 1,000 times and had, long ago, made peace with it. Those were a killer's eyes. I am Taiho, the human said. This is my mountain. You should not have come here. Junho raised his rifle. Stay back. I will kill you. Taiho did not stop. He kept walking forward, steady and slow, like the threat of the weapon meant nothing. Your armor, Taiho said conversationally. It protects against energy and projectiles, but it has weakness at the joints. The neck, the inner elbow, the back of the knee. Your engineers thought no primitive would know these things. Junho fired. The pulse beam shot across the distance between them. Taiho moved. It was not fast in the way Junho understood fast. It was something else. Taiho simply was not where the beam went. He had read the angle, predicted the trajectory, and shifted his body before Junho's finger had fully pressed the trigger. Your weapons, Taiho continued, still walking. Powerful at range. Worthless in close quarters. They are meant for battlefields, not forests. Not ambush. Junho fired again. And again. And again. Each time, Taiho slipped away from the beam like water flowing around a stone. He was not faster than the light. He was smarter than the shooter. Your training, Taiho said, now only meters away. You learn to fight in groups. You learn to rely on your technology, your armor, your weapons. You never learn to fight alone. You never learn to be afraid. Junho's rifle clicked empty. He threw it aside and drew his combat blade, a weapon of last resort. The crystalline edge could cut through almost anything. Stay back, he screamed. Taiho stopped. He stood just out of reach, watching Junho with those terrible calm eyes. The princess, Taiho said. Why does your master want her dead? She is in the way. She stands between him and the throne. He will be emperor, and nothing will stop him. And you serve this master? I serve the empire. I serve whoever rules. Taiho nodded slowly. He seemed almost sad. Then you serve no one, he said. A warrior who serves only power is not a warrior at all. He is just a tool. And tools can be broken. Junho lunged with his blade. He never saw Taiho move. He only felt his arm twisted at an impossible angle. Felt the blade fall from his numb fingers. Felt the impact as his back hit the frozen ground. Then Taiho was above him. One knee on his chest, one hand around his throat. Tell your master, Taiho said quietly. Tell him the princess is under my protection. Tell him if he sends more hunters, they will share your fate. Tell him there are things in this galaxy that he does not understand, and humanity is one of them. I cannot tell him anything, Junho gasped. If I return in failure, he will kill me. Taiho considered this. Then he released his grip and stepped back. Then do not return, he said. Disappear. Find a new life. Become something other than a tool. He turned and began walking up the mountain, back toward the cabin. Back toward the princess he had somehow promised to protect that Junho lay in the snow. Gasping for breath, trying to understand what had just happened, he had been defeated. Not by technology, not by superior numbers, not by luck. He had been defeated by a single human who knew his home, knew himself, and knew no fear. As Taiho disappeared into the storm, Junho made a decision. He would not return to his master. He would not throw his life away for a prince who saw him as nothing more than a weapon. He would disappear, and he would remember this day forever. The day he learned that humanity was not primitive at all. They were simply waiting. The ship was dying. Princess Yuna gripped the emergency handles as her transport vessel shook violently. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. The computer screamed alerts in her native language, but she already knew what they meant. The engine was destroyed. The shields were gone. She was falling. Through the cracked viewport, she saw a blue and green planet rushing toward her. Her navigation system had called it Earth, a primitive world. A backwater planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. No advanced technology. No space travel. No threat to anyone. It was the perfect place to hide. But she had not planned to crash here. She had planned to pass by quietly, to use the planet's gravity to change her course and escape her hunters. Instead, they had found her. They had shot her ship. And now she was going to die on a world that did not even know life existed beyond its sky. The ship hit the atmosphere, and fire surrounded everything. Yuna screamed as the heat burned through the weakened hull. She could feel her skin burning, even inside her protective suit. The Valaran people were strong, much stronger than most species in the galaxy. But even they could not survive a crash like this. She had only one chance. Yuna pulled herself toward the escape pod at the back of the ship. Every step was a battle against the shaking and the heat. Metal pieces flew past her head. Sparks exploded from broken wires. The floor cracked beneath her feet. She reached the pod just as the main section of the ship broke apart. With her last strength, she threw herself inside and hit the launch button. The pod shot away from the burning wreckage and fell toward the planet below. The landing was not gentle. The pod crashed through trees and snow and rock. It rolled and tumbled down a mountainside. Yuna was thrown around inside like a toy. When it finally stopped, she lay still for a long moment, wondering if she was dead. She was not dead, but she was hurt. Yuna pushed open the pod door and fell out into the snow. The cold hit her immediately. It was a shocking, brutal cold that cut through her suit and reached her bones. She had never felt anything like it. On her homeworld, the temperature was always warm and comfortable. This planet was trying to kill her already. She looked around. She was in a forest of tall trees covered in white snow. The sky was gray and heavy with clouds. More snow was falling, thick and fast. In the distance, she could see mountains reaching up toward the sky. There was no sign of civilization. No buildings. No roads. No people. She was alone. Yuna tried to stand, but pain shot through her leg and she fell back down. She looked and saw violet blood seeping through a tear in her suit. A piece of metal from the crash had cut deep into her thigh. The wound was bad. Without medical attention, she would bleed out within hours. She reached for her emergency kit, but it was gone. Lost somewhere in the crash. Her communication device was destroyed. Her weapon was missing. She had nothing but her damaged suit and her failing body. This was how she would die. Not in battle. Not protecting her people. But alone and cold on a primitive planet, bleeding into foreign snow. Yuna laughed bitterly. Her brother would be pleased. Prince Dowan had wanted her dead for years. He wanted the throne for himself, and she was the only one standing in his way. Their father, the emperor, was old and sick. When he died, Yuna would become empress. Unless she died first, Dowan had sent the assassins. She was sure of it. He had finally made his move, and she had been too slow to stop him. The snow continued to fall. Yuna's vision began to blur. The cold was seeping into her mind now, making her thoughts slow and confused. She knew she should try to move, try to find shelter, but her body would not obey. Then she felt it. Someone was watching her. Yuna's hunting instincts, trained since childhood, screamed a warning. She was not alone. Something was out there in the trees, hidden in the storm, watching her with careful eyes. She forced herself to look up, to scan the tree line for the threat. And there, standing perfectly still between two large pines, she saw him, a figure, tall and broad, dressed in thick clothing the color of the forest. His face was hidden by a hood, but she could see his eyes. They were watching her with an intensity that made her blood run cold. He looked like her people. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. The same basic shape that evolution seemed to favor across the galaxy. But there was something different about him. Something she could not name. He looked human. Yuna had studied humans before. All Valoran nobles learned about the various species of the galaxy, even the primitive ones. Humans were considered unimportant. They had not yet discovered faster-than-light travel. They fought wars among themselves. They were divided into hundreds of nations that could not agree on anything. They were supposed to be weak, but this human did not look weak. He stood in the freezing storm without shaking. He watched her with eyes that showed no fear, no surprise, no confusion. He had seen an alien spacecraft crash from the sky, had watched a purple-blooded creature crawl from the wreckage. And he simply stood there, waiting. While Yuna tried to speak, to say something, but her voice would not work. The cold had stolen it from her. She could only stare at this strange being as darkness crept into the edges of her vision. The human moved. Not fast, not slow. Just steady and sure, like a predator that knew its prey could not escape. He walked through the deep snow as if it were nothing. He came closer and closer until he stood directly over her. Yuna looked up at his face. He had pulled back his hood, and she could see him clearly now. His skin was tan and weathered by sun and wind. His hair was black and cut short. His jaw was strong, and his nose was straight. But it was his eyes that held her attention. They were dark brown, almost black, and they held a depth she had not expected. There was no hatred in them, no greed, no cruelty. Just a calm, patient watchfulness that seemed to see everything and judge nothing. He knelt down beside her. He looked at her wound, at her strange blood, and her luminescent skin that glowed faintly in the gray light. He showed no surprise at any of it. Then he spoke. His voice was deep and quiet, barely louder than the falling snow. "You are hurt." Yuna understood him. Her translation implant, at least, was still working. She tried to respond, but only a weak sound came out. The human nodded as if he understood anyway. He reached down and lifted her from the snow. His arms were strong, stronger than she expected. He held her carefully, avoiding her wound, and began to walk through the storm. Yuna wanted to fight. She wanted to demand answers. She wanted to know who this human was and why he was helping her. But she was too weak. The cold and the blood loss had taken everything from her dot as darkness finally claimed her vision. She heard him speak one more time, "Hold on." And somehow, despite everything, she believed him. 3 days passed. Yuna grew stronger. The food Taiho brought her was simple but nourishing. Her wound was healing faster than she expected, the Valoran biology working to repair the damage. By the second day, she could walk. By the third, she could move without pain. During those 3 days, she learned little about Taiho. He was a man of few words and even fewer explanations. He came and went like a shadow, sometimes disappearing for hours into the frozen forest. When he returned, he would check her wound, bring her food, and sit by the fire in silence. She learned that he had lived in these mountains for many years. She learned that he hunted for his food and cut wood for his fire. She learned that he had no family, no friends, no connection to the wider human world. But she did not learn why. There was a sadness in him, deep and old. She could see it in the quiet moments when he thought she was not watching. It lived in his eyes, hidden beneath the calm surface. Something had broken this man long ago, and he had come to this frozen place to escape it. Yuna understood that feeling. She had felt it herself when she fled her home. On the morning of the 4th day, Taiho returned from one of his journeys with a different look on his face. His calm had sharpened into something harder. His movements were quicker, more purposeful. "They are here," he said. Yuna's blood went cold. "How many?" "6. They landed in the valley below. They are moving up the mountain." 6. Yuna closed her eyes. 6 of her brothers, elite hunters. Each one was worth 100 normal soldiers. They were trained from childhood to kill, modified with biological enhancements, equipped with the finest weapons in the Empire. Against them, she had no chance. Against them, this simple human had no chance. "You should run," she told Taiho. "Take what you can carry and disappear into the mountains. They are not here for you. If you stay away, they will not hunt you." Taiho looked at her. His expression did not change. "No," he said. "You do not understand. These are not ordinary enemies. They are monsters. They have killed thousands. They will not stop. They will not negotiate. They will not show mercy. If you stay here, you will die. Maybe, maybe. There is no maybe. This is certain. I have seen what they can do." Taiho walked to a wooden chest in the corner of the room. He opened it and began pulling out items. Yuna watched in confusion as he laid them on the table. Rope, wire, small metal pieces. Things she did not recognize. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Preparing." "Preparing what?" "You have no weapons that can hurt them. You have no armor that can protect you. You are one human against 6 enhanced killers with technology you cannot imagine." Taiho paused. He looked at her with those calm, dark eyes. "Tell me about them," he said. "What?" "The hunters. Tell me how they fight. Tell me their strengths, their weaknesses. Tell me everything." Yuna stared at him. He was serious. This mad human was actually planning to fight them. "They are called the Shadow Guard," she said slowly. "They serve my brother directly. They wear armor that absorbs energy weapons and deflects physical attacks. They carry pulse rifles that can cut through metal. They have enhanced senses that can track prey across any terrain. They never stop. They never rest. They are machines of death wearing Valoran skin. Taiho listened carefully. He asked questions. Specific questions about their armor, their weapons, their tactics. How did they communicate? How did they move in groups? What were their blind spots? Yuna answered as best she could. She had trained with the Shadow Guard in her youth before they were given fully to her brother. She knew their methods, their protocols, their patterns. When she finished, Taiho nodded. He gathered his items and walked to the door. "Stay here," he said. "Stay hidden. Do not come out until I return. And if you do not return..." Taiho paused at the door. For the first time, a small smile touched his lips. "Then you will have to save yourself, princess." Then he was gone. Yuna waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. The cabin was silent except for the crackling fire. She paced the small room, her healing leg aching with each step. She hated waiting. She hated being useless. She was a princess of the Valoran Empire, trained in combat and strategy. And she was hiding like a frightened child while a primitive human fought her battles. It was shameful, but she was also smart enough to know she could not help. In her current state, against those enemies, she would only be a burden. Taiho had the advantage of knowing this land. She did not. A sound cut through the silence. Distant, muffled by the snow and trees, but unmistakable. A scream. Not a human scream. A Valoran scream. High and sharp and cut suddenly short. Yuna's heart beat faster. One of the hunters had died. Somehow, impossibly, one of the hunters had died. More sounds followed. Pulse rifle fire echoing through the mountains. Shouts in her native language. Another scream, this one longer, filled with pain and terror. Then silence. Yuna pressed her face to the window, trying to see through the falling snow. She could see nothing but white and gray and the dark shapes of trees. The sounds had come from somewhere below, somewhere on the mountain slope. Time stretched. Each minute felt like an hour. Yuna's imagination filled the silence with terrible images. Taiho lying dead in the snow. The hunters climbing toward the cabin. Her brother's face when he learned she had finally died. A shape emerged from the trees. Yuna tensed, ready to run, ready to fight, ready to die if necessary. But it was Taiho. He walked through the snow with that same steady pace, that same unhurried calm. But he was different now. His clothes were torn and stained with something dark. His face had a cut across one cheek. In his hand, he carried something that made Yuna's breath stop, a Valoran pulse rifle. He reached the cabin and stepped inside. Cold air followed him, swirling with snowflakes. He set the rifle on the table and began removing his damaged outer clothing. "Two," he said. Why Yuan could not speak. She could only stare. "Two are dead," Taiho continued. "4 remain. They are regrouping in the valley. They did not expect resistance. How?" Yuna finally managed. "How did you kill them?" They are Shadow Guard. They are the finest warriors in the Empire." "How did a human?" Taiho looked at her. There was no pride in his eyes, no excitement, no satisfaction. There was only that same calm watchfulness. "They walked into my home," he said simply. "They did not know the land. They did not know the cold. They did not know me." He finished changing into dry clothes and picked up the pulse rifle. He examined it with careful hands, learning its weight and balance. "This weapon," he said. "Show me how it works." Yuna moved to him in a daze. She showed him the power settings, the firing mechanism, the safety systems. He learned quickly, his hands moving with practiced ease. Within minutes, he handled the alien weapon like he had used it his whole life. "The remaining 4," Taiho said. "They will come together now. They will be more careful, more dangerous. Yes, they will not underestimate you again." "Good." Taiho moved to the door. "Fear makes prey stupid." "Wait." Yuna grabbed his arm. "Let me help. I am stronger now. I can fight." Taiho looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. For a long moment, he said nothing. "Can you move silently in deep snow?" "No. Do you know this mountain? Its paths, its hiding places, its dangers?" "No." "Then you will stay. You will wait. And when this is over, you will owe me a debt." Yuna released his arm. She wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She would only slow him down. What kind of debt? She asked. Taiho opened the door. The cold wind rushed in, carrying snow and the distant sound of forlorn voices calling to each other. "I will tell you," he said, "if I survive." Then he disappeared into the storm once more. Yuna stood alone in the cabin, listening to the sounds of her hunters searching the mountain. Somewhere out there, a single human was stalking them through the snow dot, and for the first time in her life, she pitied the shadow guard.